following his victory over the French forces led by Marshal Soult during the Second Battle of Porto on the 12th of May 1809. Sir Arthur Wellesley, later the Duke of Wellington, advanced into Spain, planning to join forces with the Spanish commanded by General Custer in an attack on Madrid. Meanwhile, the French, led by the Emperor's brother, Joseph, King of Spain, were determined to concentrate their forces to destroy the British forces in the peninsula. Wellesley's army arrived at Planicia on the 9th of July. The intelligence he received informed him that Marshal Victor's force of 22,000 men in front of him was retreating towards Talavera, while General Sebastiani was deployed to the southeast of Toledo with 10,000 men, shadowing the Spanish army of 20,000 men commanded by General Venegas, which was advancing towards Madrid. The British continued their advance and reached Oropesa on the 20th of July. The Spanish army reached Veleda on the 21st of July. On receiving the news that the British and Spanish armies were advancing towards him, Joseph advanced down the Tagus Valley with his reserve, joining with General Sebastiani at Toledo, then combining with the forces of Victor to confront the Allied forces. Wellesley had intended to attack Victor on the 23rd of July, before he could join with Joseph and Sebastiani. However, Custer refused to cooperate and the opportunity was lost. Meanwhile, Vengas's army, which was now following Sebastiani, had received conflicting orders from the junta in Seville and from Custer. As a result, he halted his advance and lost contact with the French. Custer's Spanish army continued to advance towards Toledo. At Torrijos, some 15 miles from Toledo, they encountered the concentrated French army of around 55,000 men. The Spanish began to fall back towards Talavera, where Wellesley suggested that they form a combined defensive position. Both sides began to concentrate their forces at Talavera during the afternoon and evening of the 27th of July. During the night, Victor sent forward 3 regiments of Ruffin's division to seize the Medellin Hill. During the attack, 2 of the regiments lost their way in the dark, but the 9th Light Infantry routed a brigade of the King's German Legion and advanced to capture the high ground. However, General Rowland Hill counterattacked with Richard Stewart's brigade, which repelled the French attack. The British suffered some 800 casualties on the night of the 27th. During the evening, some French dragoons rode close to the Spanish position, firing their carbines at their skirmishers. The Spanish line responded by firing a volley at the dragoons that were out of range of the Spanish muskets. However, this resulted in 4 Spanish battalions retreating in panic, and while the majority of these troops later rallied, many hundreds continued their disorderly retreat. On the morning of the 28th of July, both sides at Talavera, in terms of the numbers of troops, were evenly matched, with the French fielding approximately 55,000 troops, facing about 55,600 Allied troops, consisting of 20,600 British and 35,000 Spanish. The Allied army was positioned with the bulk of the Spanish army on the right wing, while the British were positioned on the left. The majority of Custer's army formed a defensive position from the town of Talavera on the banks of the Tagus River, stretching north as far as the British redoubt at Parda de Vergra, in which was deployed a battery of 4 3-pounder cannon. The bulk of the British infantry was positioned in the centre of the Allied defensive line, with a cavalry reserve. Further to the left, the Medellin Hill was held by 3 infantry divisions, while Anson's cavalry brigade covered the valley between the Medellin and the Sugrilla. Joseph had positioned Victor's corps on the French right, on the hill of Cascajal, opposite the Medellin Hill, with 30 French cannon. Sebastiani's corps were positioned in the centre, while the cavalry of La Tour Malbourg was in the reserve. On the French left, Milhaud's cavalry faced almost the entire Spanish army. The battle recommenced at dawn with a bombardment from the French cannon on Cascajal, inflicting heavy casualties amongst the British infantry, and those positioned on the Medellin Hill withdrew to the protection of the reverse slope. The French once again attacked the Medellin with 3 battalions of Ruffin's division. Once they came into effective range, the British emerged from the cover of the reverse slope to pour volley fire from both the front and the flanks into the French columns, which wavered, broke, then withdrew. Victor redeployed some of the survivors of the attack on the Medellin Hill to the right to support the attack close to the Sugrilla. The French then launched a mass infantry attack against the British centre, with the infantry under Laval on the left attacking the Spanish and British troops first, and the French centre under Sebastiani and the right under Lapisse attacking simultaneously. The British Guards on the right, adjoining the Spanish, routed the French regiments opposing them. They then charged in pursuit, but ran into the second French line, which routed the British in turn, who carried away Cameron's brigade in the centre with them. Seeing his left and centre beginning to break, Wellesley advanced the 48th Foot to fill the gap in his line. They broke the French second line of attack as some of the routed British infantry rallied. While the main French attack was being repelled, Victor advanced his men down the valley between the Medellin and the Sugrilla, forcing Wellesley to seek reinforcements from Custer, in the form of Albuquerque's cavalry division and a battery of horse artillery, who were deployed behind the British cavalry to the west of the Medellin Hill. The British cavalry under Anson was ordered to attack, while the 1st Hussars of the King's German Legion advanced at a controlled pace. The 23rd Light Dragoons soon broke in to an undisciplined charge, injuring many horses in a hidden ravine. The French infantry formed into squares as the dragoons continued to charge past them and ran into the French cavalry drawn up behind the French infantry. In the resulting skirmish, the British dragoons suffered badly, with 102 killed and wounded and another 105 taken prisoner. The French infantry in the squares then became subjected to heavy fire by British and Spanish guns, preventing them from advancing. Then the grass on the northern slope of the Medellin caught fire. The blaze spread across the plain to the Sugrilla, forcing the French to fall back. At around 6 p.m, Victor received incorrect information that Wellesley was attempting to outflank him on his right. This caused Victor to withdraw. This prompted Sebastiani to withdraw his troops. Joseph then ordered a general withdrawal, bringing the end to the Battle of Talavera. During the Battle of Talavera, the French suffered 7,389 casualties, with 944 killed and 6,294 wounded. The Allies suffered a total of 7,468 casualties. The Spanish casualties were about 1,200, while the British casualties were 6,268, including approximately 800 killed. Meanwhile, Marshal Soult advanced south, threatening to cut Wellesley off from Portugal. Thinking that Soult's force was only 15,000 strong, Wellesley intended to advance to confront him. However, Spanish guerrillas presented Wellesley with a captured message from Soult to Joseph, revealing that Soult had 30,000 men. Wellesley, realizing his line of retreat back to Portugal was now under threat, began withdrawing his forces back across the mountains into Portugal. After the Battle of Talavera, Wellesley was created Viscount Wellington of Talavera.